Hi, friends and fellow Culturians. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we have to talk about disaster at Disney. Seems like that's any day that ends in Y. But right now, they're in full-blown panic mode. And apparently, after the recent re-election of the guy that they hate, that they made no secret of, they had a revelation. They realized that they're missing something pretty important, the other half of the country. It's definitely not a new film. It's definitely not a new television show. It's the people that actually elected the person that they don't like, which means they don't quite understand what's going on and they're out of touch. And it's something that we've been telling them for a very long time. In other words, they're in desperate search of something they don't have. They're going to have a really hard time finding. It's truly rare within the company right now, so rare, in fact, that even a treasure hunt within their ranks isn't going to yield a conservative because they have effectively, successfully pushed out anybody who doesn't think like them, or at least people who would willingly tell you that they don't think like you. I mean, who would have thought you're going to have a problem? Well, Disney owned ABC News is reportedly scrambling to bring in a conservative, in particular, to shows like The View, where you would have to volunteer to be a pincushion for all of the evil ladies that say that, well, you're racist all the time, amongst other kinds of slurs that might be uncomfortable for somebody to sit on camera and be talked about in that manner all day. I don't think I would sign up for it, although if you paid me three-quarters of what Whoopi makes and made it so that they couldn't speak while I was talking, maybe you could get me on board. In other words, we're obviously going to have a problem finding a conservative. I mean, the contest used to be there. Whoever could bash the Trump the loudest, most often, and in the most vile way was the winner of the show. But apparently, there's this huge internal push. They have to get somebody for a more fair and balanced perspective because everybody's trying to pivot towards Fox's old log line. But my friends, I'm telling you, there ain't no needle in that haystack, and you can search all day. So it's going to have to be somebody from outside. Ultimately, it's a problem of leadership and a dilemma of representation, which they seem to used to pride themselves on. So why are they panicking? It should be easy, right? Well, the leadership has been incredibly vocal about their political leanings. CEO Bob Iger is loyal to the side of progressive causes and says it as much as he possibly can, even at the Deal Book Summit that he likes to attend and show off that he's the leader of the club. The problem is he's made no secret of the fact that he leans one way and one way only. He also seems to only employ people and elevate people who believe one way and one way only. Hence, we ended up with Dana Walden, who is overseeing Disney's television and news division. That's right. She's been rumored to be towards the top of the 4-candidate internal list for the replacement of the CEO, Bob Iger himself. Here's the problem. She's really, really close to VP Kamala Harris. You've probably heard that before. So close, in fact, that she introduced the VP to her husband. I don't think she did him any favors, or I don't think she did her any favors by picking that man, but hey, there we are. It's not exactly the setup for what you would expect to be a fair and balanced newsroom. So you're going to have to really go outside and do some outside the box thinking. Now, they're not the only ones that are so ideologically entrenched that this is going to be hard, but they're the key players involved. If your entire leadership is openly on one side, you suddenly realize that half the country doesn't get representation from you. And you're going to have to find a conservative that can bounce onto the View, dodge the arrows, and start their own 5-alarm fire in order to get any kind of attention on that news program. Because the ladies that sit there already, well, they're going to be just brutal. And as I've suggested before, I would take over that chair. Of course, I'm not a woman, not that that seems to be a qualification, but I think that it would be somebody like me taking 3/4 of what Whoopi makes and just, because it's fair, right? It's fair. Anyway, taking 3/4 of what Whoopi makes and, well, having a clause in my contract that they can't speak or interrupt me when I'm talking, because that's the only way you're going to get somebody on there, because they just shout everybody down all the time and call them vile things constantly, even if it's not overt, even if it's subtle. They think they're smarter than everybody that comes on there. Oh boy, are they clearly not. I don't know. It's going to be a hard find. But it shouldn't surprise anybody. Disney has for the last decade and a half anyway, been ideology over creativity. And you know what? Something Bob had to admit recently. The company is so ideological that they spent the last decade driving anybody away that isn't in their exact mold, as I said before. They have a massive creative talent gap now, which they have to overcome. It's not just for TV personalities or anything else. It's the fact that across the board, in any position that's creative, they've replaced all of the people that were moderate or conservative with somebody who shares a very ideologically driven extremist progressive view. Again, it's not just the news division, it's on the big screen. And things are rough there too. It's on the little screen. Take Snow White, actually. Let's jump back to the silver screen. Snow White, starring Rachel Zegler. Recently, I did a video that you all appreciated that, her views are just incendiary. Her political views are something that she can't help but spew. And it was enough to drive more than half the audience away. Now, I'm surmising it is. I can't guarantee it is. But Disney is discovering that consumers aren't just watching their content anymore. They will actively turn away from their content when their messaging is that political. They're watching who's making what. And Disney is the thing they're avoiding. So when they see somebody like, well, let's say Rachel Zegler tied to Disney and tied to one of the classics, or the classic in this case was Snow White, fans have had enough and they're walking away. So while Disney used to have a dream team in the mornings, the crew over there at The View with Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and others, on the film side, well, they have their own dream team as well. And it doesn't include anybody who doesn't think exactly like them. You have to think like Rachel Zegler. That's not a recipe for reach. You're only getting one specific demographic. And it's not like Bob doesn't know. He does. During the most recent earnings call, which just happened, well, today, if you're watching this when I release it, or just a little ways back on November 14th, well, he went over the 2025 film releases. You know what he didn't even mention? Snow White. And this is the second quarter in a row where he didn't even bother to talk about it. This is a film that they reportedly, or by rumor, or both, are well into the $400 million category for making. It's going to be a live action Disney disaster. It's going to definitely push so many audience members away. I don't know how they could expect for it to be profitable. And the Globe is getting sick and tired of this kind of entertainment as well. It's almost like by him not mentioning it, he wants us all to forget about it. Except they're going to have to start advertising it because it's coming out in a few months. And now, as we head into a brand new quarter, there's a whole other horizon that they need to worry about. Their theme parks. It's not just where all this outward noise is coming from through their media outlets. It's the people down the highway, down I-4 in Florida, that are really bringing a challenge. The new Universal Epic Universe theme park is something that industry analysts say could shake up the whole industry. It definitely is going to redefine the industry in terms of quality and the ability of animatronics, and I could go on and on. They have everything set up in a way that embarrasses Disney right now. And when confronted on that side of the equation, oh, by the way, they also are terrified of mentioning that they lost all of their creative minds that were, well, probably a little bit more moderate to conservative, all over to Universal's creative team. How do I know that? Well, I've got friends in Florida too. But of course, Bob didn't even deal with that elephant in the room, nor do they even have a language to talk about it with. They talk about their models, which are probably very deeply flawed. Did you see their polling before they went into the election? So he sidesteps on two issues, ignores one, and is in desperate need to correct a fourth. I think he's got some major problems, or the company does, and it looks like, or at least sounded like, Bob's pretty much done being the CEO of this company. I think he's ready to move forward, which means if I were James Gorman, I would step up that succession committee and not even look at that EA guy, because oh my gosh, what a disaster he'd be. Let's find a qualified person. There's a few of them out there, but they certainly aren't within the company. unless you're seriously considering a co-CEO, the likes of which you'd get Staggs and Mayer, or even throw Rasulo in there. And I think you'd be pretty well set up. So instead of dealing with all of that, what does he do? He pushes forth an ESPN tab on your Disney Plus coming on December 4th, I believe, which is also going to include betting. That's right. Your Disney Plus will include betting. Or at least that's what they're hoping. I don't know if they'll get away with it, but they're going to try it. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's the last straw for anybody considering Disney to be a family company. So where does that leave us? Well, here. Disney is finally feeling the consequences of its decade-long drive to drive away anybody that was even remotely conservative or centrist. And now they're realizing they lost a huge chunk of the country and their creativity and many, many other things. Well, and a lot of institutional knowledge and experience, merit, things that you just can't replace. They've given themselves a near impossible task, and I don't think they have the temerity to actually complete it. I think they're stuck until they get somebody else at the top and maybe clear out some of the dead wood as well. So I got to ask you, do you think Disney can course correct? Or have they gone too far? Is it possible to bring in a conservative voice into a company that they know actually hates them from the get-go? I don't think so. We'll see. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. I would value them. I think they're on a uphill battle like Sisyphus and pushing a boulder that's probably, well, glued down to the mountain. Like I said, double check that you're still subscribed. YouTube has been doing some silly buggers lately. Make sure that you hit the thumbs up while you're down there. And you know what? Turn that little bell icon on so you get all the notifications, because I do videos every day, sometimes many videos per day, plus a live stream every day. And you don't want to miss those. Woo, they're cooking. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others. And until next time, see ya.